Smart 24, driving business.
Good morning and good to have you here on Smart 24 television. We've got 25 minutes to the top of the hour, that is to 11 a.m. And of course our conversations now are deeply in regards to the post-budget breakdown. And of course, yesterday the Minister of Finance, Planning and Economic Development, this Honorable Matia Kasaija, did present or read the budget for the millions of Ugandans. 52.7 trillion budget was presented to the Ugandans yesterday at the Kololo ceremonial grounds. And one of the key reasons behind our kind of conversations today is to at least break it down for you, to at least see where you as a normal Ugandan will benefit in regards to the allocations that were given out. And of course, when you look at some of the key priorities for the national budget, you will find human capital development, then we've got security and governance, there's roads and infrastructure, quite a number of those, and we're also going to be talking deeper the private sector. This is where you will find production and the services sector in Uganda. So our kind of conversation today will be rotating really in regards to making sure that you understand the budget for the next financial year, which is kicking off. That is on the 1st of July 2023. And of course, to have this discussion with me, I'm not alone this morning. I do have the head of the program's coordinator at Siatini, that is Ms. Penny Nambabazi, who is on set with me this morning. Good morning and many thanks for joining us. Good morning.
Thank you. Good morning. I'm glad to be here.
Okay. Pleasure is ours to hosting you. And also we do have a gentleman from the Ministry of Finance, Planning and Economic Development. That is Mr. Joseph Enyimu, who is the Commissioner, Economic Development, Policy and Research at the Ministry. Good morning and many thanks for joining us.
Good morning viewers.
All right, now I'll start with Ms. Penny Nambabazi. When you look at human capital development, this is a very huge concern in regards to the fact that it's one of the priorities for the next financial year. But when you come to think of it, how has the human capital development in general performed previously?
Thank you. Looking at human capital development, it definitely encompasses four key areas.
Okay.
When it comes to health, education, social development, water and environment, but also looking at how government has been able to utilize engaging with issues to do with productivity, skilling of workers, but also ensuring incomes also are boosted. And we know that there have been challenges along the way on how a number of different areas have felt that they have not had improvement in their incomes. Yes. Social development is still a challenge in today's area when it comes to how it's impacting on the lives of women, youth, but also encouraging, maybe from what government interventions have been, that we get to see priority has been given to the program in regards to allocation. And that is a change in how it used to be, because for a long time we used to see more priority given to a number of different sectors, transport, works and transport. Now at least we see human capital development being at the center.
Okay, Mr. Enyimu, if you come to think of it, how does the 52.7 trillion budget reflect to government's push to implement and promote human capital development?
All right, before we look into the numbers, I think the headline which would be good to appreciate is one, the progress, long-range progress that the country has made.
Very true.
And when we talk about human capital development, there are 3 key outcome indicators. That is life expectancy. So over the last generation, the life expectancy of Ugandans has increased by 20 years, from 43 now to 63. That means a child born today, has a chance of
has a lifespan of at least 60 years.
63 years compared to a generation ago when they'll be living just at 43. The second one is literacy, the ability to read and write, which is critical to your capture of opportunities. And so we have also improved. We are now hedging to about 76%. And then we have the last one would be incomes. And we measure your incomes per capita. And the good news is that we exceeded our NDP3 target for this year. We are now at USD $1,088 per capita. So those are the headlines. In terms of the figures, as my colleague has highlighted, the Human Capital Development Program pulled off with the largest share of the budget allocations this time around. I think we're heading around 29 or so trillion shillings.
And when we look at the key initiatives, this takes me back to Ms. Penina Mbabazi, you as the policymakers, especially in the private sector. When you look at the initiatives, which initiatives do you think have been attached to the budget that will help us implement this as a core objective? Because when we set it out as a priority, one expects that it's going to be really fundamental for the growth of the entire human capital.
Yes, there are interventions within the budget. For example, when it comes to skilling, we know that has also been put as a priority on income generation, especially to enhance income of different workforces in that program. But also maybe part of what can also be shared is that even regardless of maybe the challenges that have come, even with that increment of allocation, we definitely see that it is going to be also able for them to kind of contribute towards economic growth. But also seeing that we can be able to raise more awareness or generate a generation even of people who are able to take care of the economy by being first through the government by enhancing that area, but also seeing to it that they also make their fair contribution, which has already been seen in a number of instances where we have seen skills in a number of different sectors that have been boosted up, especially for professions that do with health workers, maternity area, which has been of high concern, given that there have also been some issues to how our facilities are, but at least for the workforce, we tend to see that some areas have been improved in terms of income.
And Mr. Nyimu, when you look at human capital development, what are some of those key components that you believe should be of core focus in the next financial year? Because we may look at it broadly and not give it an in-depth into it. Where do you think should be our most focus within human capital development?
So under the National Development Plan 3, as a country we agreed on an approach to managing human capital development, and we call it the life cycle approach. The fact that developing a human being doesn't start when they are born. It actually starts with the condition and the health of the mother. And so, and of course we follow that through up to old age. And so we look at that full spectrum of priorities. When it comes to the context of one financial year, which is where your question is. Government is focusing really on ensuring that the quality of services at the facilities is at desirable standards. So the delivery of drugs, managing drug stockouts, so that when the population comes to these facilities, they get the services they require.
Okay.
The other one is improving the functionality of services. Government has a target of making sure that we have a health center 3, at least in every sub-county of the country. And that should be functional. So we are upgrading some health center tools to be able to provide the menu of services that are expected in a health center 3, including the ability to deliver mothers.
Okay.
Then the other one is on human resource. As you heard yesterday from the minister, once we are done with the payroll audit, is really to improve, the numbers, because the load is very large. We have a very large population.
Okay.
And then in terms of the broad approach, is also just promoting preventive healthcare, not to wait to seek for curative services, but improving the consciousness of the people that, like one of the former officials used to say, that health is made at home, it's only repaired in the hospital.
Okay.
And so making more and more Ugandans conscious of healthy lifestyles. As you know, non-communicable diseases are on the rise. So things like cancer, blood pressure, and so those are lifestyle associated diseases.
Okay.
And if we can lower their incidence, we also lower the burden on the health system.
Okay, and to put this in proper context, you get to realize that in this particular financial year that is coming to an end, June 30th, you get to realize that the services sector performed quite well, and this clearly tells you a lot to do with services production in the country. And now my other question, of course, is rotating around how true is this pro-people budget. Ms. Penina-Mbabazi, when you look at national budget here, it is looked at a budget that is directly going to be benefited. Most of the Ugandans out there, more so the 39% of those who are still considered as poor Ugandans, the government intends to have the 39% into the money economy as well. Do you think the budget will address these concerns?
Definitely with having incorporating, adding inclusivity of people into the money economy, it like you've mentioned, the service sector, it grew to about 6.2%, but you get to realize that is private sector. It's a private sector driven area where if you find more interventions have been put for government to the private sector, there could be even more a higher increase to that. But also seeing that when you say people-centered, there's a need for the budget to also speak to the glaring gaps that we are seeing.
Okay.
Definitely we know for an economy to run with the need of inclusivity, there is definitely, we have seen inclusion from different areas of from financing, accessibility to credit, which is something that is still growing.
Okay.
We know there are still challenges when it comes to how many different groups or organizations, or depending on service, like the service industry, have been able to tap into access to credit. Farmers for production, even while agriculture has had an increase in productivity, we know that there have been also some challenges to how small farmers could be able to gain from some of these interventions that government has put across. So we still feel that there's definitely some gaps to do with how we are seeing the budget speaking to the private sector.
Okay.
Yeah, if it could be more streamlined and strengthened, especially given the fact that we know it has been private sector led to a number of key areas like the service sector, agriculture, and so forth.
Now let me get back to Mr. Joseph. He's the man who's coming in from the key drivers of the entire budget situation. When you look at the national budget here, first and foremost, I did have an interaction with the permanent secretary to the Treasury, who did say that the money is there in the Treasury, so they will be able to disperse it off. That means Ugandans will benefit from the money. How true is that?
That's correct. As you know, though, that money is one input. It has to be combined with other inputs. Yes. So the readiness of households, having in place a good business idea, you know, really understanding what is it that I can sell, you know, what is it that I have to combine this money with, who are the people I need to work with, you know, who's going to supply me feed, where am I going to buy the chicks from, when my chickens are ready, you know, who is going to pick them up, which restaurant, which school. So I think that's the ecosystem that now we need to start making sure that it gets together. But as far as money which is for available at a low cost, government has done some significant undertakings to that direction. Okay. It's just now the readiness of in the case of the PDM, the readiness of these circles to make sure that when they receive people's money, they can manage this money professionally and that it can go to the targeted beneficiaries. That is, of course, the money which is available in the economy, you would say it's largely in three segments. There is money for our big industrialists, you know, the people that run the factories that produce things for exports. So you talk about the Bidcos, you know, the roofings of this world, you know. Those money for those kind of players is largely available from Uganda Development Bank. And then there is money which is available from the commercial banks, okay, for people who want to trade, you know, retail, wholesale trade. We also have money for people in agriculture under the agriculture credit facility. Okay. And then we have now money for households really in rural areas in the informal sector, where we have the PDM and Emyoga resources. So the issue is helping people with what we call business development services. The ability to know how to turn this money into a return where you make a profit. It's not something that you take for granted, okay, as you may appreciate.
Well, have you also designed any, you know, reforms that will enhance accountability the next financial year, especially when it comes to enrolling out this, rather allocating these funds now directly to the beneficiaries or to the various sectors?
Yes. And I will just speak to two major ones. Okay. One of the big things we are putting across over this NDP3 period, and also continuing to next year, is really the automation of government, minimizing the human element in the transmission of this money. Okay. So if you take, for example, now under the PDM, the way that money is being sent to the beneficiaries, cuts out a lot of government institutions. The money leaves the treasury and it goes straight to the SACCO account. And we've also worked it out so that when money leaves that SACCO account for whoever is going to benefit, everybody who is a member will be able to receive a message on their phone. So it will be very transparent. You'll know that, okay, this amount of money has left our account, and you'll have the opportunity to follow through. The other one that we are putting in is the collaboration with players that are non-government actors, so like civil society, the supervision of the political leaders, people just being vigilant. And transparency with the information, making this information public, so that the people are the ones holding themselves to account. And we keep out the bureaucrats. As you have heard from the president, this time around the parish chief is not among those who will be in the kitchen of this money. The people will watch over their own money. So the government officials are out of that space.
Okay.
Yeah.
And well, of course, for those who are just joining us here, our conversations are really rotating around the breakdown of the national budget. It was presented yesterday, and now we are into that post-breakdown. And of course, we are digging deeper into looking at the key priorities for the next financial year. And when we return after the break, we talk private sector and of course how it has been able to at least shape up the growth of Uganda's economy. Its allocations of 1.9 trillion shillings, and of course where will the other sectors benefit from this, and which other sectors am I saying? The public sector, or that is the entire government. And well, of course, as we continue our discussions, you can follow us now and share your views on our Twitter. That is at Smart24TV now. You can share your views and opinions on what we are discussing here. Later on, we shall be sharing those opinions with the guests here to at least give you answers to some of the questions that you want pursued. But well, also, if you want to get more of the same, you can get us on our YouTube as we are streaming live. That is Smart24TV. You can as well share your feedback and opinions there in regards to Uganda's national budget. Do you think it will definitely meet its core objectives, or will you benefit as a Ugandan? You may not benefit directly, but of course in the long run you can definitely benefit. The conversations return shortly after the break. This is Smart 24.